Hello.
Hello.
Hi, this is Fam Electric Ghost.
Hey, this
So,
is Tanner from the XO.
hi. So you're on air, and yeah, I'll just do a little intro. This is Fam Electric Ghost. We interview indie bands from around the world, and we have the Dallas, Texas dark pop band XO. We're just have you today, Tanner.
Uh, we have me, and then I believe our singer and our bass player, the other members, are trying to join in right now, and that's them right
Yeah,
now.
I think they're in.
Hello. Hello, Mark.
Hey. So you're on with Tanner and Fam Electric Ghost. So we have everybody who's going to be on today, right?
I believe so. Yeah, Andre and I are here using the same phone.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So I sent you a list of questions, and you guys sent me your bio information. So we'll kind of start there.
Dope.
So like, when did you guys first get into music? Maybe like before the XO. I'm kind of gauge when you got into music, and then maybe talk about how you got together.
Man, as
Whoever
long as
wants to
I
go
can
first.
remember, since I started breathing.
Yeah. I actually got into music because of Andre here, and it's weird. I really over I guess the last 10 years, I've really kind of grown to really just create a life within it, and so it's been a lot of fun. But I would say like middle school, we just were sit around with like acoustic guitars,
Jamming,
Yeah.
writing our own music around that time
Yeah.
is when it started. So just a lot
Yeah.
of small, nothing projects and small bands in between then. And I think Tanner was on the same boat on his end, and that's kind of how we met somewhere through our older projects. So
Yeah, we actually used to play shows at a venue that Tanner would manage and run events for, and so it's fun that we met in that way.
yeah, so I guess to answer your question, like really 2010, 11?
Nine.
Yeah, somewhere around there, man.
Yeah.
Quite a minute.
Oh yeah.
So if you started there, you had different bands and different projects before you became the XO.
100%. Yeah, you got to go
Plenty.
through the mud before you're able to get something as great as this. So
Yeah, we went through the trenches.
Yeah, it's
Lots of bloodshed.
So you've been working on music since 2010. You would say that's the and so when did you guys individually realize you wanted to actually write your own music? Because that don't go that direction, they become like studio musicians or session musicians or part of orchestras and different things. When did you guys feel like, oh, I want to write music and I want to write my own music?
Jake, I would say it's been your dream for as long as I can remember, but I think more seriously, Jake, what's it been for, I guess, really the XO coming to that fruition? About 3 or 2 years?
Yeah, I guess the thing that inspired me to start writing is just like I found it therapeutic. In the beginning, it was just really about making sounds that people thought were cool, you know. And I did a lot of I moved behind the computer and did a lot of production stuff kind of early on. But I think here recently, and the songs that people will hear with the XO, it was really just about me kind of documenting trials that I was going through, emotions that I would have, and I would kind of just catch a vibe and an emotion and try to create that sonically as almost like an experience for someone to be able to go through while listening. And so what a ways we'll kind of have that. Darling, When You Wake Up in November, the two songs that we have out now are really just kind of cool songs. And the songs that we'll continue to release over the next few months will really show, I guess, our evolution as a group, along with me as a songwriter. But
yeah, so I guess to answer that, really just some live trials that all of us go through that, you know, not just us as a band, but, you know, our audience will obviously go through in their own lives. So that's the inspiration, man, is we all go through this and might as well make it something that's tangible and relatable to be able to provide an outreach.
Yeah, and it's almost therapeutic on our end from a selfish perspective, like just almost like somebody would have a diary or a journal, you know, just being able to get these things out, you know. So I think that's a lot of the fuel behind the writing.
Yeah, a lot of the bands, I've been interviewing people since 2018. I've interviewed about 45 bands, and most of them are singer-songwriters, and they all kind of tell that story that, you know, songwriting is kind of like writing a novel. You're writing like a sound painting that's like visual in its impact. It's almost cinematic, you know, and the great songwriters invoke like these pictures or movies, like many plays, and it usually represents like the pain in their life, and they can relay it, so it's universal. That seems to be most of the singer-songwriters I talk to kind of talk about how they can relay something personal in their life and relate it so their fans understand it, because everybody kind of goes through the same thing.
Yeah. I would hate to be like cheesy here, but yeah, man, that's a secret sauce, man. You got to go through the ish to be able to put something out there like that. That's obviously something a lot of people go through.
Yeah, I think the difference is creatives are able to take that pain and, turn it into a positive piece of work. Painters do it with their pain. They turn it into a painting. The musicians are able to take a song and, make it relatable.
Yeah.
So I see your influences. It's interesting because I just was listening to the Gorillaz latest release. I'm a fan of 21 Pilots, and it's my band, the Ghost, is inspired by the Gorillaz. It's like a made up idea. It's the idea that Josephine Electric, my lead singer, is a made up character that I create with a vocoder.
Hell yeah!
So kind of like 2D.
That's cool.
So it's interesting that you guys are going in that direction. What made you gravitate to bands like 21 Pilots and Gorillaz?
Man,
I wouldn't even say that's us, right?
Yeah. So the thing is like, I do a lot of Jake do a lot of the initial inspiration. It'll just start with me, catching a vibe behind the computer, and then I'll bring it to the guys to really fill out the sound. But as I grow as a producer and a songwriter, I really try out a lot of different styles and a lot of different vibes. So when you ask like what are influences, it's like we all have music that we like that we feel is a part of our image and our ego, and that represents us individually. But for the band, it's just like it's all over the place. And I know that it's easy to say we like these bands and we want to make this kind of noise, but really, as we are a collection of everything we've ever seen, heard, met, and seen people do, right? We take all of these things and we create an ego that we like, that we feel is us. And I think our music is kind of the same thing. And so to just name a band or two, as our sound, I think is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah, we're trying to be a lot more definitive in our own exact sound that we're trying to portray anyway. So
right.
And a lot of these songs, you'll hear some stories behind them. It's inspired by like one random song that ends up becoming completely different. So what a waste. We could probably get into that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think you actually have a question about that coming up, and I think this may be even a good time. You've heard the song by Bozzy that's like, "You so fucking precious when you smile." That song actually inspired What a Waste that's coming out Sunday.
Completely different vibe.
I sat down behind the computer and I wanted to kind of bring that similar energy, and I didn't. But I mean, I brought a similar like vocal melody, but the vibe just ended up taking a life of its own. And so, as far as inspirations, man, or influences, they're all over, and
we filter it into our sound.
Yeah, so it's fun. Yeah.
Well, I think it's like the core in a lot of new music, or what's going on in the scene right now. It's like a merging of multiple genres, and so it's kind of hard to pin. People will say, "Oh, I'm dark pop," but then they've got hip hop elements, or they've got punk rock elements, or got a punk aesthetic.
We got rap,
but they're not a punk band.
Yeah,
you might have a punk aesthetic and have that attitude, and maybe you're coming at it more like Joy Division or the Talking Heads more than the Ramones. So it's kind of like everybody has different flavors of how they do things. Like the Clash, they're a big punk band, but they went into Caribbean music and hip hop and different rhythms. And so I think a lot of what today is, you see this kind of cross pollination of multiple genres.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as we enter the age of the bedroom producer, and we have enter the age of the bedroom producer and have more control over our own sound, not just us, but as artists, I think we're going to see a lot of that. I think we're going to see a lot of people taking these weird, different sounds and creating something that is their own. And I'm actually really excited for that.
Yeah, that's a cool thing you mentioned, like bedroom producers, because like back in the old days, you get a big producer, you get like a Todd Rundgren, or you get, Mutt Lange, you get these guys, and they would kind of put you in a narrow zone, that you had to kind of, if I'm going to make a hit, if I'm going to get on the radio, I got to follow this kind of path. But if you're kind of more self-directed and you own your own vision, because you can be a bedroom producer, you can make decisions, you can make choices that are not kind of put upon you. Then you're able to really, have that true aspect of being a singer-songwriter is, being in control of your craft.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, it actually creates almost a source of it's almost a source of anxiety on its own. It's like as we grow as artists and as producers, we get toolboxes, metaphorically speaking, that are so freaking big, and all these different things that we know how to do and can do. It's like, what the F do we do?
Where do we start?
Like, we can do anything.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck do we do? So, it has its pros and its cons, and I think that it's going to birth a lot of really beautiful sounds. And like I said earlier, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it kind of gets into writing style. Like what I found as an artist producer is I've kind of gone away from the DAW and gone into like hardware recording with my analog synths. And I've decided that if I kind of play it, like, let's say I force limitations. I'm not going to go on the grid. I'm going to go on my Moog. I'm going to hardware record it. And I'm going to let like the analog CV kind of experimentation kind of drive where I go.
Wow.
Like a jazz fusion thing. And if you do that, then you kind of, you have a toolbox, but it's more organic.
Yeah.
And you have less choices, and it kind of forces you to deal with limitations. Like if you have an 8-step sequencer instead of like an unlimited sequencer, you have to make certain choices, that forces you to do something in maybe a more minimalistic way. And then that kind of can inform the music.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
So when it comes to you guys, like, what kind of workflow process do you use in terms of your DAW? Or do you do traditional recording in a studio? Do you do stuff in your DAW? Like you said, you alluded to your bedroom producers. I'm assuming you're using a digital audio workstation of some type.
Yeah, so as far as creative process goes, a lot of times I'll just be on my own. Jake will just kind of be on my own and come up with an idea and bring it to the boys, like I said earlier. But I don't really have a rigid process. Sometimes vocals will come to me and I'll, jot them down in voice memos and then come back to those later or never. Which I got a lot of that. And
so many projects.
and then I got a lot of demos that are fleshed out, somewhat, that I kind of like create a vibe, get to a stopping point, and just kind of document it. And I've got a SoundCloud that's building of those, and I don't really market it, so it doesn't go anywhere, which is fine by me. It's just a playlist for me to have access to. But creative process,
like a work area,
always different,
and
area. I can't really give you an idea
other than just home studio and booking yourself in a room for a little bit.
A lot of hours.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of time.
So do you guys, like, when you write, there's a central, core writer that you write like the lyrics and the demo, and then you guys all work as a band to flesh it out? Or does like one guy have the full demo and then you kind of, take that roadmap and adjust it? Or is it like different every time?
I mean, I'll kind of hop on this one, right? So yeah, Jacob obviously, and Andre over here, just kind of let I would say me and Tanner both let Jacob handle like most of the initial creative process. Once he gets us, initial demos and a bounce or two, that's when we start jumping in. This is where we say, hey, let's go ahead and focus on this direction. And I mean, I'll let Tanner jump in here in a little bit. Like, that's really where we're just like, hey, me as a bassist or Tanner as a guitarist really think it might be, beneficial to go ahead and start taking this direction in a certain project. So, we try to talk each other up or talk each other down, just depending on how that's going. So, I mean, Tanner had a really good addition on this last piece. I don't know if you wanted to talk about that or really how he chimes in on a lot of the projects too.
Yeah, I tend to try to just like write all my guitar parts organically, but obviously we have to come together and make sure that it comes to a consensus. I like the most of Jake's demos that he actually sends me tend to, at least recently, like November and What a Waste, didn't have guitar parts. So it was kind of like a blank canvas for me, which is real nice. And that kind of just allowed me to come at it completely from my angle. And then Jake was able to insert his perspective, and then we refined it and found something that we all enjoyed. So, it's just, it's organic process, and it just changes every time. But
I mean,
Yeah.
for the bass and What a Waste, I don't think that came into fruition until we were in the actual like second phase and then actual recording studio when we were ready to put the buttons on it. So it's different every time.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when I'm a solo act right now, but back in the day, 10, 15 years ago, I was in bands, and being a keyboard player, sometimes I write the whole demo with like an 808 or a 909 with a 303, put bass lines in. But then if I brought like something on my 303 and gave it to a bass player, of course they're going to play something better than a TB03.
Yeah.
But the TB303 is kind of like the initial like feel of what I thought it should be. But I would always defer to my drummer that drummer's going to pick up an 808 and add things to it that I can't do, right? And then the bass player is going to bring in character that a bass player kind of has a natural feel for, and the singer is going to come up with something different than what I did. So it's just interesting when you're in that kind of creative process of a band, of a unit, you kind of defer to each other's best capabilities to kind of have the notion of what should actually sound right for that feel.
Yeah. Have you heard of Sleep Party People?
Oh gosh, it's a good band.
No, I have. What's that?
You gotta look it up, man.
Underground electronic or something.
Yeah, it's this guy Brian Batts, and he's like overseas in like Denmark or something. But he's a bedroom producer that kind of was before the curve, and he does a lot of analog stuff and really weird voices with like a microphone and tons of effects and distortion and delay. It's a vibe, and I think you'd enjoy it. I think you may even be able to pull some inspiration from it.
Yeah, very different stuff.
Not again, I don't know, what your sound is, but just hearing your creative process, I think Sleep Party People might be a cool thing for you to check out.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of vocoders going back to the 70s, like Moog vocoders.
Yeah.
And, I've got like 3 different types of Roland vocoders that I've used, not for auto-tune, but I try to create like characters like the way Prince did with Camille.
Yeah.
Is I decided that I would actually use it not to kind of make my voice sound pretty or better, but actually turn it into like the way an actor turns it into a character.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love vocoders.
Approach.
What a Waste coming out this Sunday had a lot, and and they've been pushed back in the mix a bit, which I think in the end is for the better. We worked with Seth Munson, and we'll be working with Seth Munson on our mixes going further. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but he put those back in the mix, and I think that'll actually make for a better song. But I love vocoders; they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'd just like to play with them in terms of like changing the character of my pitch.
Oh, if you like them, check out Magic City Hippies. That's another quick influence and plug that they absolutely wreck.
Well, I'll check that.
They're really cool. And all their vocal effects they do in recording, they also do live, which is just sick. So much fun.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about some of these real-time vocoders is unlike what you had to do in the past with like a sped-up analog tape, I can actually do my lead singer, Josephine Electric, live. I've actually done her with my full kind of phantom getup, which is kind of, it's basically a getup that you can't tell the sexuality of the character, which makes it work good. You have this androgynous ghost that's, I'm a one-guy band, but I'm playing a female kind of ghost phantom. And you can't really tell what I'm doing. I'm in this kind of LED phantom outfit, and the whole idea is you can't really tell if I'm a guy.
Dang, we're gonna have to check that out.
But I got this female voice coming out, and I can do it in real time. And so that's what my whole kind of vibe, which is kind of like the way like say was inspired by the Gorillaz and Damon Albarn, and what he does with 2D and all the rest of the characters is to create a kind of fanciful band of like ghosts that it's fictional, but then it becomes reality when
another artist that I feel like needs to get mentioned that does this type of stuff too is Metalocalypse, the metal band.
Oh, yeah,
they're awesome. Yeah, no, but it's cool to see how far people have taken it. It's just a simple idea.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I was looking at your single, so maybe you want to talk about your latest track is November, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's run it. What you got?
So in terms of like, how did you guys get, who was responsible for this song, or as a band, maybe kind of talk about the actual, the origin of the song and how
November's fun. It's actually a song about me breaking up with a girlfriend, right? But I wrote it while I was dating the girlfriend that I ended up breaking up with, and so recording that like in my bedroom, the vocals for it in my bedroom with her there was definitely.
Not only that, she's in the music video too. Oh no,
I'm darling. So November was fun, man. It actually started off really beat driven. It was like a hip hop beat weird thing on my computer, and bringing that one to the band. That's when we really found that there's a really cool medium when my demos meet, us as a group of people. But November was a lot of fun. I think it was a good starting point for us, and moving forward, we're gonna have a lot of really cool shit that I think really excites people.
Again, those trials of life and errors that I think not only Jake was going through at that time, but even me personally too, and even with What a Waste, it's the same kind of coin. But that's exactly where we're trying to connect with the audience. It's everyone's dealing with this ish. Let's put it in that positive vibe, as you mentioned earlier. Not necessarily positive, but something that you can cope with and vibe with, and just makes it really fun.
Yeah.
So are these songs part of a bigger project, an EP or an album, or
TBD, bro?
We liked the original, the idea originally of these releasing these once a month and then filing into an album, but I think we'll just release singles for now.
It could be
an album has almost like this consistency to it that I don't think these singles have. So, right now I think we just have fun with it, and we just develop ourselves more into a really, really solid, really solid music group, and then I think at that point we'll figure out what to do with the album or EP if we even want to.
No limitations. Really trying to expand and of course just get some really connectable content out there. So
and then rule the world. So
it's interesting.
World domination.
Yeah, we are in a time period. Well, we are in time period of the Spotify and Apple Music playlist and the different. It's kind of a playlist era. It kind of reminds me of the way the 50s were, where you basically had singles and you really didn't have the idea of albums other than you would take all your hit singles and put them into a collection. Which kind of not with a reverse of what happened in the 60s with the Beatles and the creation of like the themed album, which it's kind of like, I'm showing my age. I'm a child of the 70s, and so I grew up with vinyl. And in that situation, you used to listen to the whole project, right? Because you pick up Pink Floyd, you pick up
you ain't
Sgt.
skipping
Pepper's,
tracks.
You'd always you didn't really skip tracks. You would just listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, but I think it'll kind of harken back to what you're kind of even doing with your project. It just kind of becomes a whole collective experience to where, you can enjoy like one bit or section or song by itself, but some of these artists that are coming out are wanting to, do what you're doing, try to make it way more of a collective experience.
Yeah, it's just kind of going both ways. I think in popular music, you have the trend of the playlist, and then kind of in the underground and in all these other alternate media, you still have bands that are trying to do concept albums or do themed albums or themed projects. And so, like, if you're a band like me, most of my songs are over 7 minutes long. So I'm kind of going toward Yes and Genesis and Tangerine Dream. Those are the people I listen to, like Sun Ra, Miles Davis, Coltrane. So I'm in the tradition of a jam band, improvisational stuff that's longer, 2-3 minutes. But there's a whole market for different strokes for different folks. Some people in this industry still like that, or the fan base are into that, and so you kind of find your audience based on who's into you.
For sure.
So, where your audience? How much of is it really localized to Dallas, or have you been able to get beyond your?
Yeah,
area?
actually, the first song we ever released, we actually had international recognition and merch sales that we would ship overseas to, like I think it was the UK. So our first song, we did really well at marketing it, and it really showed off. So. Going into this next round of things, right now we're really just filling our Spotify page so that when we start another round of marketing, we've got a really solid store, so that when we have new people come into our shop, essentially, metaphorically speaking, we've got something to sell, and customers and fans that will stick around.
Yeah.
So as far as who they are and where they are, we don't know. That's kind of data that we'll get over the next few months when we start sending out new information. We just have people from our last group that are kind of and friends and family. It's really, really small right now. It's going to be a really fun journey to see what happens over the next few months.
Yeah, we learned a lot, again, what Jake was mentioning on that first song. So again, what we learned from that, now we're really building that shop, and we're not really focusing on that limited approach. We got our eyes focused on world domination. So we're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really interesting with a lot of bands today, like it used to be back in the day where I came from, you played a pizza shop, you played a bar, right? And you had to build like a local following before you could get to the next town. And now with the net, suddenly you could have, impact in Berlin or impact in Sweden or Norway, and suddenly you got a fan base that's not where you would expect. And it's just interesting what happens.
I mean, I'll tell you this. I mean, like, that's where a lot of bands are falling into traps right now, because that's the process that they know and they're aware of. So, like, yeah, let's start off playing some local shows. We're not wanting to fall into that trap. I mean, not that we're above that, but we just have our eyes. We realize we got something really good on our hands, and we have our eyes on something bigger. And I mean, just again, with the people that we connect with, I mean, for November, the album art, we connected with someone over in Germany. And so that's just how a little bit of these things start. You make those connections wherever you can.
Yeah, it's really interesting on the internet today, the way you can connect to so many different people. I did actually have the same kind of experience for an album I did in 2017. I had an artist in Greece. They actually did a cover of an album I did with a actress from Los Angeles, and we never even met.
Wow.
We worked on the project, and we did everything over the net back in 2017. Wow. So we did a whole album where she was in her FL studio, I'm in my studio, bedroom studio. We did the whole album. Then we had the album art done by this guy in Greece.
Wow.
That we met through that. And so it's like this type of thing is kind of happening more during COVID, because people can't fly to Berlin, or they can't fly to Greece, or they can't meet each other. But, this type of thing was going on even 2, 3, 4 years ago. Wow. It's just interesting that you guys are kind of in the... You're using the social media era to kind of be more of a band that doesn't have to do that kind of local build.
Wow.
Right?
And I'm actually really surprised that you caught on to that, because that's wow. Yeah, that's exactly right. We found that when we play a show, we can maybe get 20 a local show, we can maybe get 20, 25 fans. When we run ads, we can get 200. You know what I'm saying? Without in the background, right? That shit's just going.
And not we're fishing. Wow. We're trying to connect. So, I mean, we're just trying to, work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, it's just interesting. I've been doing Facebook Live and Twitch and, Periscope since 2016. And I used to go to New York, and maybe I get a small club to get 300-400 people. But when I do a Facebook Live, I get 4,000 people. When I go Twitch, I get 1,000 people come into a Twitch or Facebook Live, and it's kind of like how I built my brand, how I got into podcasting.
Nice.
I was on SoundCloud, people found me there. I got picked up by Anchor, which is part of Spotify, and I started interviewing bands back in 2018. And I actually started in 2017 on a different platform, but then moved to this one. But you never know where music, I wasn't intending on being a podcaster. It just became something that kind of helps my music and, helps me talk to other musicians, which I think as a musician, it's a really good idea to talk to other creators.
Yeah.
Well, for sure. I mean, that's all. Networking is critical to our career paths. So, I mean, the more people that are like-minded and that are willing to just help each other out and even just share like-minded music is just, I think, beneficial for both parties.
So you guys focus more on actually crafting songs at this point than to doing maybe online live performances?
100%. Yeah. Our most important thing is making songs that people want to play next week on their own without us having to shove it down their throats. We want to make some good shit that people remember and want to show people on their own, without having a sense that they need to share it, right? We just want to make good songs that people want to listen to.
Couldn't have said it better. Right now, we're not trying to get the cart in front of the horse, so...
So do you guys have a goal of how many songs you're going to put out? You just let the songs come to you?
Yeah, we've got a lot in the bank, in the spank bank, and I think over the next 8 or so months, we're gonna just release a single on the first of every month. That's our plan right now.
Oh, so you're right. You got a monthly single kind of idea going all the way into 2020.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
I'm gonna see how long we can keep that going. Honestly,
right on the nail.
Well, I think that's a good strategy if you think about what Motown used to do. I mean, they used to run their artists. Sometimes they were running like every 2 weeks back in the heyday of Motown. And it was like what I said. It's like the singles era, where a band, if it didn't work, then they just did another one. Go talk to Smokey, go talk to Marvin, and then they write another song. It's like, okay, it didn't work for the Marvelettes. We'll give it to the Temptations, or we'll give it to the Four Tops. They just kept on making a machine, and they just kept on putting them out to see what, throw it against the wall and see what's going to work. So is that your kind of strategy? Is like, oh, because some people say, oh, I should only put one song out every 6 months or every year and let it build and put all my effort into that. But other people say, well, let me keep on putting things out.
Man, it's phases, bro. Right now that's our phase. Later in time, if things end up being successful, we might spend a year out on vacation and having a good time and traveling and whatnot, and then taking influences from that, and then maybe spending a good amount of time to make songs. But right now we're in the early stages. We're in that phase. So it's like Jake said, building that shop right now. We're trying to get a lot of content so people can come in and shop and want to do it on their own without us shoving it down their throat.
Yeah, and to clarify on the shop thing, because I know we've mentioned that twice now without really explaining that. A Spotify profile for us right now is like a store in a mall. And so for us, it's what brings people in, what keeps them there, makes them look around, and what makes a sale, right?
Friends.
Yeah. So right now we're just in the business of building a store that does business. And in that, we just got to make some products that people want to buy.
After that, there'll be seasonal changes. So I think that's what you're alluding to. A little bit later, maybe we can hit one of those, but right now it's content.
All right.
When you guys mentioned show, I know a lot of bands like they really survive on their merch. That like the T-shirts and the posters and the buttons that they create in their own stores. So when you mentioned that initially, I was kind of waiting for you to elaborate whether or not you actually had like a web store where a lot of bands I know in New York, they make more money selling their T-shirts, and that keeps them going than they actually on the records.
Yeah. For Darling When You Wake Up, our first release, like I said, we had a really good marketing campaign behind that, and we actually designed our own merch, and it sold decently, and we're really excited for merch. I think that's going to be a large source of income for us until we're able to and ready to play shows again.
Yeah, I don't know that we'll survive off of it. I mean, regardless, we'll do whatever it takes because we got something good on our hands. But yeah, that's just a piece of it for us, not our soul.
Yeah, it's the whole thing with music today. It's between the sync licensing and the merch, and then the one leg that's kind of been taken out because of COVID is the touring leg, which most modern bands, because of the way the music industry is right now, that's where they got their money from. Like at least in places like New York and Boston, playing on the club circuit is how you can survive if you get a good following, and you can get pretty good followings. You can go places like Fenway has all these big electronic clubs where you can play and get big, every weekend you could be playing, and then you can sell the merch. And without those legs, now people are having trouble. So as an artist, one of the questions I asked about is like, how are you handling the Corona situation where a lot of artists have lost a lot of their a lot of that leg of their support?
Man, we're making lemonade.
Yep.
Take something bad and make it productive.
Yeah, because you already had a strategy where you really weren't focusing on the show as much as some bands.
Yeah, shows really aren't that important until you're touring and have tickets that actually make you money. We played a lot of shows for a very small amount of money, and it's just there's no ROI there. It's not a good use of our time. So that's not really a focus of ours right now.
So one of the questions I always ask people about is what are their opinions of the current state of the music industry, and streaming versus like the old days when you actually did sell CDs or records or tapes. what's your opinion about the way streaming services work and how you can use them? Like you mentioned, how you think Spotify is
two sides,
so
two sides to this coin, right? Like the barrier to entry for someone to become a fan is so small now, right? All they have to do is like click on your face and they can listen to your stuff immediately. Whereas before, it's like you just had to find somebody that had a CD, and then now because somebody else made a purchase, now you can find out about somebody, or happen to hear somebody on the radio that got hooked up. So the barrier to entry for someone to become fans is very small, and that's amazing, especially for people that are really talented. However, streaming services pay very little, so we're making a lot less off of the music itself. And so it almost becomes the music almost goes away from being an asset that makes you money and becomes a marketing thing, so that you can make money off of tickets and merch. And it's really weird how that's happened. So I think it's really cool, and really shitty, at the same time.
Yeah, overall, it's a love-hate relationship. Double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because before, when I was growing up, the barrier was, you could get to an indie label, and maybe they give you a contract, and they would say like, if you don't make it after 2 records, you're done. Where today, you have bands that are like, they're out there for years and years. Where if you did get the contract, if you didn't hit their bare minimum, you were dropped. And then you really had no other alternative to be in
man.
the industry.
If that, I mean, like, there's also people that aren't even on labels that are still able to make it just fine. So
Dave Matthews Band.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on the nail.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole idea is if you've got that kind of like Grateful Dead kind of following, like Parliament Funkadelic and Frank Zappa had followings that maybe they weren't like at the top of the charts, but they were able to survive because they had fans that were just really totally into them. They would just follow them and go to every single show because they're just diehard.
Yeah, and do a lot of psychedelics. And that did Grateful Dead a whole lot. That did them real well.
Made it a lot easier.
A good light show doesn't matter how you sound.
Yeah. Well, maybe with Zappa and Funkadelic, it was more.
Yeah, so perhaps we should just hand out tabs of acid at our shows in the future. I think that would be.
Are you a fan? No.
Well, that was old school.
That was the old way, but maybe music does cycles, right? Cycles. So.
Well, EDM kind of started that way too.
Absolutely, and it's still going. They still have a very strong fan base there. So.
Yeah, the rave people that they the
strong
MDMA
community.
crowd, but yeah. So in terms of I guess taking your art and moving it forward, have you thought of like collabing with other musicians? One of the questions we always ask is like, you're kind of genreless anyway. Would you actually do features with other people, work on other guys' projects, or you're totally focused on this particular XO band project, or would you kind of work like in an industry today? Hip hop is real famous for features. Features.
I like that question. I think doing or getting people featured on our tracks would be a lot of fun. I think we have a name to establish for ourselves first. That way we're not the group that was brought up by somebody else. I think that'd be a lot of fun. There are plenty of singers I'd love to have on our stuff, and they could even bring something to the song other than just a vocal on a verse. So I think that would be a lot of fun for the future, maybe a couple of months down the road.
Open-minded to
maybe
it.
4 or 5 months, about halfway through next year at the soonest, or early spring.
But would you think about working on other people's projects, but maybe not even getting like a highly known shout out, but like having the ability? I know back in the day it used to be sometimes the musicians would actually go kind of ghost on other people's records just to kind of get the work or just the experience of doing those collabs, but not wanting to kind of influence everybody and saying that they actually did it. Have you guys ever thought about that kind of approach?
I like to do production for other artists, and I'm going to be doing a lot more of that in the coming year. Tanner works with other artists as well, so we work with other artists and help develop other artists that we like. But really, it's paid work. We don't really do it we do it for the love of it, but we also do it because we got to get by. So Yeah, no. It's just going to develop over the next year. We're going to really see what life this takes.
Yeah, so that's kind of like part of your day gig is to be able to do that kind of stuff so you can be a working musician. Yeah, and I think that's everything. That's part of what you guys were kind of talking about with the whole, streaming thing. Sometimes you look out there, as a musician, back in the 70s, it was a different experience. But, you see, not to put them down, but like YouTubers able to make more income than, most musicians playing video games, or people willing to spend $60 on an Xbox game. But they ask them if they want to spend $10 on a band.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I can't.
Oh man, selling tickets was not
So
fun. It's like, how much am I worth to you? Nothing at all. Fuck off.
It's interesting. Somebody will send Dashy like a $20 tip for paying Mario, but they can't pay a band like $5. So it's just a different world where music doesn't seem to have some of the young people aren't as enthused about funding it at the level that other types of entertainment are being funded. And then how can the music industry change to make people realize that this type of art is worth support?
Adapt and overcome. We have to create something. We have to build value in something to bring the people out there.
They just gotta want it.
Big nuts.
Bigger the better.
Mm-hmm. So you're feeling like if you put the creative heart into it, that the people will come because of the heart and the energy you're putting into the project.
Yeah. I mean, like Little Peep
would
perform with a bed on stage and kind of create this aesthetic like it was a boy in a bedroom. And that's just one example. But, people want to pay for an experience. And right now they can stare at their phone for 2.5 hours and be entertained. Maybe not thoroughly, and maybe there's no fulfilling or feeling of fulfillment, but media and entertainment is so cheap now that you have to do a lot to stand out. And right now, like I said earlier, live performance isn't even on our plate. It's not even on our minds.
Bigger things to work on.
Yeah, I mean, I what I kind of did with what I'm doing is that the stagecraft of creating like this kind of image, because I was kind of influenced by what Andy Warhol and what Bowie did with his kind of characterization and stagecraft, where like every time he came out the door, he was like Aladdin Sane, or he's like Ziggy Stardust, and it was about the theater of it. You see that with like Freddie Mercury or Prince. Sometimes in order to stand out, if you're doing a live show, it's creating that experience where it's a performance, and it's that stagecraft that also brings people to it. If you're going to go in that direction, that's part of the whole, not the stick, but that's part of the whole experience. Is if you make people feel you're not just showing up in a pair of blue jeans, you actually have like the Ziggy Stardust character, that you actually have become this other person, and people are drawn to it because of that image. And I think people who do that kind of experience, you still see folks getting brought into the elaborate kind
you really
of
create an experience.
Not
right
like
there
Vegas,
with you.
but
The Neighborhood's really working on that with their new album.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen that, Chip Chrome and the monotones. Yeah, that's been a lot of fun to see. It looks like Tanner, his phone disconnected, and Andre and I are about looking at having to head out. So we wanted to get to some final questions if possible.
Okay. Yeah, I think the final questions I have is just like how you're deciding to move your art into a bigger way online. You've kind of already addressed that, where you're focusing on these singles.
Yeah, we want to create a really strong foundation and a really good shop that we feel comfortable sending people to. Having just Darling When You Wake Up in November, both songs being from like 2017, it didn't really represent us artistically. And so right now, What a Waste will be a good song to put in there. And I think we'll start running ads with What a Waste. But I think the song that comes after that will also be, and the song that comes out January 1st will both be very strong songs that will allow us to break out in some way. 100%. And that'll be a lot of fun. That'll and there's no figures, on our tables of what that means in terms of development, but we're really excited to see how that grows.
Yeah, we got a lot to look forward to, a lot that's coming out. So a lot for our fans and a lot for our future audience that keep an eye out.
Yeah.
It was great to talk to you guys. We're going to push this out onto 11 podcast platforms. We are part of Spotify, as we said.
Very
so
cool.
we're part of Spotify podcast and Apple podcast and 9 other ones. We will send you the links to the Apple podcast version of this and the Spotify
Very
podcast,
cool.
as well as the Anchor FM within the next hour. And we will push it on our
Wonderful.
channels. And hopefully, this will help spread the word about the XO.
Yeah,
and,
beautiful, man. Thank you.
Glad
And
to have you on the show.
for having us.
yeah, we both want to just say, thank you for taking the time out of your day to bring us into your platform and giving this opportunity. That's been very great.
Yeah, overall, man, kudos to you, man. It was a fun experience. So appreciate you putting in the work.
Yep.
Well, it's great for me to talk to other musicians during this lockdown, so I appreciate it. Well,
Thank you.
Amen.
thank
Happy
you.
Halloween.
Have a great night.
Talk to you soon. Bye now.